Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me all right. So I'm Krista Paul. I'm currently our section lead for CTE for All. Just want to welcome you to today's session. I'm just going to do a brief update, and then I have the absolute pleasure of introducing our special guest presenter in a moment. Just a quick division status. Again, things are still on track for CTE for All to potentially become its own division in July. So we're incredibly excited about that. A lot of work team effort has gone into this. So those steps are still progressing. So just want to give everybody a quick update with that. Just kind of a housekeeping message here about today's session. So I will be monitoring the chat in real time. As you have questions that may come up on the information that Nate is sharing, please feel free to jot them down in the chat, and then he will be able to address them at the end of his presentation. Okay, so anything pop in your mind or want clarification, I'll kind of just monitor that as the presentation goes on, and Nate will circle back with those at the end. Okay, so our introduction of our presenter, it's my pleasure to introduce our special guest presenter, Nate Evans, founder and owner of MyPath Coaching and Consulting. Nate has dedicated his career to supporting individuals with disabilities. Beginning with his first official job at the age of 16, Nate has consistently worked in roles that serve and empower others. While attending St. Cloud State University, he worked as a PCA, which ultimately led him to a career in education. He spent 10 years as a special education teacher, working with high school and transition age students. Throughout his time in education, Nate developed a deep understanding of the systems in place to support young adults with disabilities. Motivated by a desire to make a broader impact beyond the classroom, Nate founded MyPath Coaching and Consulting in March of 2020, right in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Wow. Despite that challenging time, he successfully launched MyPath and began working directly with individuals to help them define and achieve their personal and employment-related goals. MyPath is a CARF accredited community partner with Minnesota's vocational rehab services. Through this partnership, MyPath supports individuals with disabilities in establishing and reaching their employment goals. The organization has developed strong collaborations with schools and businesses across the state, and today's session will provide you just that, an overview of the services offered by MyPath, as well as opportunities available to partner with this impactful organization. So please join me in welcoming Nate Evans.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. You definitely covered some of the things in my presentation, so make it a little bit quicker. But I appreciate it. And like Krista said, if you guys have any questions, put them in the chat right away. Don't need to wait. And then we'll take some time to roll through any of those questions or any other questions that people have at the end. So let's get right into it. I'll share my screen here. Okay, so you guys can see this? Assuming yes. Okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay, excellent. All right. So like Krista said, my name is Nate Evans. I'm the owner of MyPath. I'll explain some more about myself and my background later. But today, our session objectives are to increase the understanding of MyPath, the services we provide, and the opportunities we provide to our clients, as well as increase understanding of funding opportunities and how clients pay for their services that we're able to provide through MyPath, and then increase the understanding of business partnerships or MyPath partnership opportunities and how we can expand our reach and who we work with. The mission of MyPath is simple. We look to build confidence and independence in individuals with all abilities while fostering the courage and perseverance to accomplish their goals. To accomplish this, prospective clients and their families will work one-on-one with their MyPath employment specialist through a person-centered process to find a path to follow, which will lead to fulfilling and rewarding life and career. So a little bit more about me, and some of this was hit on. My name is Nate Evans. I grew up in Rochester, Minnesota. That's where I graduated from high school. From there, I went to school at St. Cloud State University in Minnesota. I got a degree in special education with the DCD focus, as well as I got an autism certificate right away. And then I also have my work experience coordinator license. Um, I also coached sports while I was still in teaching. And, from the very beginning, when I was 16, I took a job at one of the local like youth services programs in Rochester for after school and summer care to really like test out like is this what I want to do long term, right? I remember having that conversation with my dad, trying to figure out what am I going to do for college. I said I think I'm interested in working with individuals with disabilities, teaching special education. Um, so he gave me the sound advice to test it out and make sure that's something that you want to do. And I found this job, and that's what I've worked within for the rest of my working career. I did that throughout high school, and then in college, I was a PCA for individuals um, or young adults and children, not as much on like the elderly side, but individuals with disabilities, young, old, everything in between. Then I taught in Monticello, Minnesota for about 6 years, taught another 4 years in a transition program, and then decided to start my path in 2020. I taught part-time for a couple of years and then was able to dedicate myself full-time to my path and growing the business and expanding our reach. So how we got started, I mean, the big thing, I always knew that I wanted to start my own business or do something outside of education. I just didn't know what. And my personal journey or the path that I followed led me to starting this. And that's kind of a belief in and the origination of the name of my path. And that if you invest in the path that you're on, if you believe in the path that you're on, that the journey and the experiences along the way will lead you to where you're meant to be. And that was my own story as well. I started teaching. I was lucky enough to student teach in two different transition programs, actually. And that, exposed me to the world of transition and really to focus on life skills and functional skills in the classroom. Um, so I went to transition and I just noticed so many students and young adults that were successful throughout transition and they graduated and you'd see them, months or a year later and ask, how are you doing? What are you doing? And they said, I'm not doing anything. Like I can't find a job. I'm just struggling to kind of be independent. And I knew that there was more that was out there and there was more that we could do. And that's why I started my path was to just be a resource for those individuals and just help them navigate the systems and identify their strengths and then come up with a plan to help them accomplish their goals. So we started in, March 2020, right in the pandemic. Initially, it was just me. I was still teaching full time. I brought on my now lead employment specialist, and her and I together built, what we have today. And currently, we have 60 employees all across the metro of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and then in the greater areas of Minnesota as well. A lot of our staff are former teachers or educational professionals, a lot of special education teachers, but we also have a couple counselors that focused on post-secondary education. We have some pairs that came to us. We have some social work or like social work background. But the common thing that all our staff has is that passion to help others and the understanding that we can have a big impact on the lives of the clients that we serve. We do have our CARF accreditation. If you haven't heard of that, it's not surprising. But it is an pretty extensive accreditation that we have to go through. It's related to vocational rehab services in the state of Minnesota. Um, it's a lot, but we got it. So I like to include it in here to celebrate all our hard work in getting that accreditation. So right now we serve primarily in Minnesota. We can provide services in person. We can also provide services remotely. So we do have clients we're working with in other states as well. And that's something that we've been doing more and more. And we've got some clients like in Nevada, Florida. Actually, we have a client in Germany that we've just figured out the time zones and everything, and we make it work. We've found that even if it's virtual, we can still make a lot of progress and we can still provide all our services in that manner. Going back to pandemic, everyone's used to that. We like to be able to meet in person, obviously, for that personal connection. But if we are able to provide a benefit or provide a service that'll benefit client and it needs to be virtually, we're absolutely equipped to do that as well. Our age range right now is about 14 to we have individuals we work with that are in their 60s and 70s. Um, when it's at the starting at 14, when they're in pre-eds and they're still in school, it's a lot of exploratory, identifying interests and trying to test out those interests. But no matter where that age range is with our clients, the ultimate goal is to find employment and competitive employment, whatever that looks like for them. Because once you have that employment piece and you have an income, then we can start looking at independent living or just being more independent, saving for your wants while you're covering your needs. So having that job, having an income is makes the world of a difference, and it's very impactful on everybody that we serve and their families as well and their communities. That's how I remind our staff all the time. We're not only having a big impact on the clients, but also a big impact on their families and their communities as a whole. Um, as of now, we've served over 1,200 clients from when we've started in all different areas of life. The core values of my path, the number one will always be connecting with clients. We want to get to know the individuals that we're working with, understand their strengths, their interests, what they're not interested in, so that we can weave those into all of the work that we do. Much like education, where you try to build that into your curriculum and just make that personal connection. But we really strive to form a positive relationship and build that trust so that things are taken seriously, right? And when feedback is given, they know it's coming from a place of like, I want the best for you. And we also want our clients to have that trust so that they can tell us truly how they're feeling. I always talk to clients and say, like, your voice is the most important. Be willing to ask questions, to get your concerns answered, because that's why we're here. We're not going to make you do anything that you don't want to. Similar to that, we take an individualized approach to everything we do. I always say for any service that we provide, we have frameworks, right? Like here are some different possibilities or different avenues that we can pursue to help them accomplish their goal. But we are not going to make two clients follow the same exact sequence or scope in their services. We want to pick and pull from all of our different resources and really create an individualized, approach to it all. Similar whole person approach, we focus a lot on employment, independent living, but we end up having lots of conversations around just, your personal well-being, your mental health. If somebody is struggling with their mental health or they're not feeling that they're in a good spot, it's going to be hard for them to go and get a job and keep a job. So as much as we can, we want to develop that whole person. And we really want to promote independence and ownership. And that goes back to that, like I was saying earlier, we want the clients to be the driving force behind everything that we do. And we want to give them choices and we want to create ownership, because then once they buy in, then we can really see those positive differences. All right, so next we'll talk about our how clients pay for services, right? And primarily we have three ways. Our biggest way is through, in Minnesota, it's called vocational rehab services, or VRS, right? Every state has their version of rehabilitation services. I gave a presentation out in Washington State. Theirs was called DVR, Department of Vocational Rehabilitation. So every state has some aspect of VRS. Like Minnesota, VRS in every state is a mix of federal funds and state funds. Um, but when clients are referred to us from VRS, there is zero cost to them, which I think is incredible. And we really try to not turn anybody away that will benefit from our services. So if there's a way that we can find funding, we will absolutely do that. So within VRS, and I believe this is nationally, there's two categories: pre-employment transition services, or pre-ETS. That's when they're still in school, in high school, or a transition program. And that's those younger individuals where it's really exploratory in nature. And our philosophy is we want to try to identify areas of interest in terms of careers and then test out those areas of interest. So a big thing we do is career exploration, right? But we can also start before that with a service called workplace readiness, where it's really understanding the foundational skills of work, why we work, how do we find jobs, resumes, applications, job search, like the basics, right? But then we get into career exploration, and that's where we really try to take their interests and their strengths and see what jobs can we find, what careers can we find that are going to more so utilize those and less so utilize those things that you're just not naturally gifted at. And we have a great program we have access to called Pathful Explore. It's similar to, like an ONET, but it's got a lot of different videos that we can watch. And a lot of our clients are really, resonate with the video and audio. And it's great because we can pull all that core information for a career, but then right on that page we can see, okay, well, what are the post-secondary requirements? And then we can look and see, well, what schools in Minnesota have programs that are related to this career. So it's all together. And that's where we really try to dig in and understand, okay, if I have an interest in this career, here's what I'm going to be doing. Here's the education that I'm going to need, and gather as much information as we can for them to say, like, yeah, I'm interested in this or no longer interested. If they are interested, then we try to provide them meaningful experiences related to their areas of interest through things like job shadows, informational interviews, um, workplace tours, and then also we have access to what's called a work experience where they could go and they can actually work for a business and just gain that valuable experience. And I'll talk more about those work experiences later. But it's just that idea of identify areas of interest and then do everything we can to immerse them and give them as much information as possible so that they can make an educated and informed decision as to, yes, that when I am done with school, this is what I want to pursue. And that's the goal for pre-ets, right? I would say, like, I want you to be able to answer the question of, what are you going to do after high school? I want you to say, as of now, here's the plan, right? And I know exactly what it's going to take to get from this point to the point that I'm working within that career. So after pre-ets is 14 to 22. Now with that's when kids in Minnesota can age out of transition programs at 22, the day they turn 22. Um, After that, they move into what's called general services. And again, this is under that VRS umbrella. With general services, there's a lot we can do with public transportation training, benefits coaching, independent living, job seeking skills, social coaching for individuals in that neurodivergent umbrella of just really understanding those social cues and social skills related to work. We can help get a permit prep. Um, we can do a work experience, which I referenced before, but we have partnerships with businesses. It's like a big one is Walgreens, where we can go to Walgreens and say, hey, we have somebody interested in retail, or we have somebody interested in stocking, or we have somebody that's never worked and they want to gain some experience. And we'll set up a schedule for them, 2 to 4 days a week, 2 to 4 hour shifts. They work those shifts with or without a job coach, but they're not formally hired by Walgreens. They're actually an employee of MyPath. We pay them for their time, and then we get reimbursed from the state. And that has been such a game changer of just being able to get our clients' foot in the door and prove themselves and show their abilities without having to go through the whole hiring process. Um, and getting formally hired. We've had lots of individuals get hired as a result of that. And then everything with general services is working towards this first one, this performance-based agreement, or called the PBA. That's when we're job searching, right? That's when we're applying and or prepping for an interview. Once they get the job, we continue to work with them and work with the business or a manager, as long as the client's okay with it, to just be that bridge between employee and employer and just make sure things are going well and work with the client, work with the manager to identify any concerns and then come up with a plan to address those. And that's what it's all about, right? Like whether it's pre-ets, general services, we always are trying to take steps towards long-term competitive employment, whatever that may look like for our clients. It doesn't have to be full-time, 40 hours a week. Whatever they are looking for is what we're trying to provide. Another way that we can provide services is through waivers. Um, you know, my path in Minnesota, it's called the 245D provider. Uh, it's under the Medicaid umbrella. If somebody has a county social worker, they'll have a waiver, and a waiver is a pot of money that they can use for their needs. That's like when somebody needs a PCA, typically it's paid through their waiver. If someone is going to go and live in a group home, it's paid through their waiver. So this too, like VRS, is a state service. It's just a little bit different in how they go about it. We don't do like group homes, PCA, or day programs, but we can provide employment related services under someone's waiver, as well as independent living related services. And this too, if you have a waiver, we can get it all figured out. Then there's zero cost to any of our participants. And then we can always do private pay as well. We have flexible payment options. Our kind of general rule of thumb is we're going to charge $100 per hour for like those meetings, but you don't get billed until the end of the month, and it's based off what we did. We don't make people sign a contract or prepay. We'll provide the service if we have that agreement that yeah, you're going to pay for it, and as long as you pay for it, we'll provide the service again the next month. But that was a big thing I grappled with when I started this. Initially, when I started my path, I viewed it as, all right, like I can find families that are going to be willing to pay. But it's like, well, what if I find a family that is going to be a clear benefit, but they can't afford it? And I want to find ways that we could still work with them, but still generate, income to run the business. Because I should have said this earlier, my path is established as a for-profit business, so we can't, pursue those grants. We're working towards a nonprofit just to open that realm up. But when I started this, it was filed as an LLC. So we get creative with if we can't do VRS, if we can't do um, waivers, we've had people try to go to their insurance. We can't bill under insurance. We haven't gotten into all those insurance codes and everything. But if all those other options aren't available, then we will work with the family to figure out what private pay will look like. And that can be in person, virtual, or both. So these are our different programs, our different services that we can provide. Um, and we recently kind of rebranded these into our own. But it's still like I explained between the pre-S and the general services. But like for Career Quest, we're exploring careers. That's where we're using Pathful Explore, identify those areas of interest and really dig into them. Ready to work is those foundational skills of understanding why we work. We've actually developed a 8-stage or 8-phase process to like bring someone through the whole process of like I want to work to applying to like going through a mock interview, going through like a simulated onboarding, and then working on, okay, like now that you have the job, what do you need to do to be successful? Live Strong is with independent living. We're actually partnering with a mother of a former client that we have that developed a program called Neuro Ally uh, to help individuals with their everyday needs. And we've developed a curriculum around that app called Live Strong. College Connection is exploring post-secondary. We have good connections with, I would say, of our clients that are interested in post-secondary, most are interested in 2-year programs. We definitely have clients that are pursuing 4-year degrees and beyond. A lot are interested in those 2-year programs because it's more focused, right? Less of those general classes, more of applicable to what you're going to be doing in your career. So we'll look into and research 2-year, 4-year, but we'll also look at are there any certificates that we could pursue, any licenses, and then we've also worked closely with different unions around Minnesota to make sure we understand the trades and understand the apprenticeship option if somebody is really interested in working with their hands but doesn't want to go to school. Road Ready, we have developed a pretty extensive permit prep curriculum where we kind of go through a scaffold approach of a lot of help and then phasing it back until they're doing our mock tests that we created independently and then talking through those answers. We've helped a lot of individuals get their permit. We don't do any behind the wheel stuff, but we will absolutely help to get their permit. We'll help you schedule your behind the wheel. But getting that permit is the first step. We also have a program called Cashiers for Change. It's a cashier training program. We've purchased 3 different like actual legit point of sale touchscreen cash registers to help our individuals be comfortable with that. And that stemmed from that Walgreens experience, right? We had a lot of clients that Walgreens is like, we're interested in hiring them, but are they going to be comfortable and they're going to be able to operate the cash register? And sometimes even our clients will be, oh, that makes me nervous. I don't want to do that. So they're missing out on that opportunity just because they didn't have that experience. So we said, we identified this barrier. How can we knock this barrier down? And we purchased our first cash register, developed a 4 to 6 week program to bring clients through. And that one we like to do in person for the role playing aspect of being able to be a disgruntled customer or, plan off changing who's going to be the cashier. So that one's been really cool. The empowering you is about advocacy skills, self-advocacy, social skills. And then the grow is the get ready for opportunities to work, is just job search and help navigate the job market and secure your ideal position and career. So all these are on our website. We have more information and flyers for all these different programs. And we always say too, like we can start with one and move to the other, right? Like what's next in the journey. And that's where if we are able to start working with our clients earlier, when they are, a sophomore, junior in high school, then we can really do our due diligence to provide them with that information and that background and those experiences so that we can accomplish a lot. So it's been cool to see over the years our clients go from high school to college, and we can continue to work with them throughout college. And now we have some that are graduating and starting that job search for their long-term career. So we have clients that we'll end up working with for years, and it's really cool to be a part of their journey. We also have developed some really unique opportunities that all have that focus on life skills. One that we have right now is called Heroes Path. So this is a Dungeons and Dragons group that incorporates social skills, soft skills, problem solving, teamwork, things like that. So we have one of our employees, a former special education teacher, also an avid D&D player. He's the dungeon master. He brings them through the game, helps develop a character, and then weaves in these different skills. And I had personally never played, but I've learned a lot. I just watched Stranger Things. He was telling me about it, and it's really cool. And I could see where people could really get behind it and have a lot of fun. But to be able to weave in those social skills and also create a sense of community amongst our clients is really important and is really cool. For Heroes Path, we have in person, but we also have virtual. So we can do the whole thing virtually. We have people from all over that are interested. This is newer to us, so we're getting this started and off the ground. But we got our first two virtual and in-person cohorts going through it, um, as we speak. And that anytime we can provide something virtually, we want to. Other ones we've been developing is like a comic book making class. One of our employees is an author. He has written graphic novels and is an illustrator. We have an employee that has some acting experience that is developing an improv class to work on social skills. We will, developing cooking. We have two employees that have computer science degrees. Programming, video game design is a huge area of interest amongst our clientele. So we wanted to provide them with those meaningful experiences and to be able to talk to somebody that knows what they're talking about. I had worked with clients that were interested in programming. I learned a lot about programming, coding, but I know nothing compared to them. So it's nice to be able to speak their language and work with someone who understands what they're doing. And then our newest one that we're about to launch is called Peers. It's a social skills training. So Peers is a program based out of UCLA. Research, evidence-based. If you've ever seen the show Love on a Spectrum, I think in the first season, they have them go through a dating boot camp, and that is from Peers through this program that we have now 6 staff that are certified peers practitioners that they can provide these services, but it's all about social skills and everything that goes into social skills. So there's like aspects of like how do we handle bullying, how do we handle losing a friend, getting a friend. It really does a deep dive into it, and it's all research based. So that's a newer one that we have. That info is on the website. PEERS, Peers Social Skills Coaching out of UCLA. And that's one too. If we can get a group we can do this virtually. Obviously be better in person, but we can make it work virtually as well. So I've mentioned these different business partnerships. We put a big emphasis on trying to make connections and partnerships with businesses in our area. Walgreens was the first one. Walgreens has this program. It's called the Ready program. So we saw that and said, okay, you guys already have this initiative in place to hire more individuals with disabilities. Can we tap into that? And we did. We've worked with, I think, 50, 60 different Walgreens, and we've had so many people do those work experiences. And even if they don't get hired, we treat it as a springboard, right? Like, now what's next? What did you like about that? What did you not? And it's so beneficial for someone that's never worked, right? It's hard to explore careers and have those conversations if you have nothing to base it off of. So if we can go and provide these at a Walgreens, it's really fantastic. We also have Hy-Vee is like a local grocery store around here. We have multiple partnerships with grocery stores. Caribou Coffee is headquartered in Minneapolis, so we have a connection with them. We've been able to get some clients in there working. The YMCA, TPI Hospitality is a hotel group around here. Hotels is another one where like there are so many different jobs in the hotel industry and hospitality industry. And we made a connection with them on the local level in Minneapolis. So the last two training camps for the Minnesota Vikings, we've had clients there working and selling gear. And then we've had clients that have been able to go and work at Vikings games in their store selling stuff. We've been able to have clients at Timberwolves games for the NBA, the Wild for NHL, and then even our local soccer team. And then also they have a warehouse that we've been able to provide work experiences for the warehouse, which is just another industry and setting that is always hiring and I think is a good fit for the clients that we work with. And we're always looking to develop more partnerships. And what I always challenge my team of is, we all know those common areas of interest. Sports was like we have a lot of clients interested in sports. That's was the genesis of Fanatics. Programming, IT, that's where we've developed partnerships. We can get our clients experience there, but we're always looking at what's the area of interest and how can we form a partnership in the community. That's where we can leverage those partnerships, not only through work experiences, but when we have those positive relationships with businesses, and then we have a client that's looking to apply for a job, we can reach out, right? We can set up that tour. We can set up an informational interview. There's so much benefit that comes from having those relationships and being able to go and make that connection and just having someone to reach out to within a business, having a contact makes the world of a difference. What we try to do is just give our clients an opportunity, right? Like get their foot in the door. Because more times than not, they're going to exceed expectations. They're going to break down some of those misconceptions, and they're going to prove that, yeah, I'm going to be a really quality employee. So there's a lot we can do with those business partnerships to the benefit of our clients. And then we have community partnerships as well. We've done a lot of work with high schools, transition programs. If we're working with the high school or transition program, we're not trying to just have them do the same thing twice. We're trying to supplement. And with all of our experience in transition programs from our staff perspective and teaching, we have a good idea of what they're doing and what they're not able to do in the school day or the barriers that they're coming up against in a school program as districts make changes and make things more difficult. Um, we want to be able to work with them and supplement what we're doing so that we can provide options outside of the school day. So that's been a huge partnership. We've worked closely with post-secondary institutes as well. Like I mentioned, trades and training centers with the unions. And then I'm always looking to meet with people that just have a passion for helping others, right? Like if there's a business that, there's any sort of overlap, then I want to meet with them to see is there any way that we can be mutually beneficial to each other as businesses, but then have that mutual that benefit to our clients most important. So we're always looking to expand, right, and just create more opportunities for growth. Um, and that can happen a lot of different ways. I've looked into different states and being able to take what we do and bring it to another state and tap into their voc rehab system, right? Like with our current VRS contract coupled with our CARF accreditation, I think it'd be fairly easy to get in and get going because we have all this evidence of this is why this has worked. So we could find the people that would want to start that and collaborate with, that's something we're really interested in. Um, working with individuals virtually, that's another one that we always have the option to. And that's that Venn diagram, right? I always think about the Venn diagram. If like as a professional, as a business, as a parent, if there's any overlap with what we're doing, let's explore it, right? Like we have that common interest and we have that common passion for helping others and helping individuals with disabilities. So let's explore if there's a way we can work together. And that's why I've been taking lots of meetings just to explore that. And sometimes it's like, yeah, we got this, and this. And sometimes it's, nothing comes of it immediately, but it still is worth that conversation just to see and spread awareness. And really what we want to do is we want to bring our services to anybody that will benefit from them. And that's going back to that nonprofit. We're in the process of filing for a nonprofit just to have a little bit more flexibility with who we work with. We will always want to work with individuals with disabilities, but I talk to parents all the time. It's like, my son or daughter that doesn't have a disability would have benefited from this. It was like, I think everybody would benefit from this sort of approach to like what comes next in life. So with the nonprofit, we want to open it up to more categories of people, with like low income, homelessness, new to the area, an immigrant, um, and really just anybody that will benefit from our services, right? Like if you see a benefit, let's find a way to make it happen. We have one individual who his sister is working with us through VRS. He's in school for computer science, and he's just working with our two computer science gurus to help him navigate that. And he doesn't have a disability, so it's like we'll make it work if there's that clear benefit. And then the last thing here, this is what it's all about: competitive, integrated employment. And like I spoke to earlier, it just makes the world of a difference, and it really is life changing when somebody can find their niche, right? They can find the job that meets their needs. It just opens up all these other possibilities, right? It leads to more social opportunities, getting out of the house, and then making money to then decide what you want to do with that money, right? Like we go through budgeting with our clients all the time, and a lot of them say, I want to live on my own. So, all right, well, let's understand what that means. And if you have that desire to live on your own, you have to have an income, right? And typically, if you're going to have an income requisite of living independently and not in like a group home or supported living, you have to find a job, and you have to be able to understand what your income is versus your expenses. But it's possible if you have that job. So this is at the center of everything that we do. Even when it's a young adult, 14, 15, it's what steps we need to take, one after the other to make progress towards competitive integrated employment. And that's where like we have job coaches that can go out to sites to workplaces with our clients. But our approach with job coaching is always as independent as possible. We're not going to keep job coaching a client just because. We want to phase back as much as we can, and ideally to the point of independence. Now, that isn't the case for everybody, but we want to figure out exactly what that is. Like, what is that threshold of independence, and then how can we increase that and build more independence on the job? That's it. That's all I got for you. So here's information, my cell phone number, my email address, and our website. We've got a lot of information on the website, all of our flyers, all of our services. We just revamped our whole website. So we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, toying with the idea of TikTok. I just don't know anything about TikTok. Um, but lots of ways to just to reach us and be able to connect and learn more about our services. But if there's ever any questions, you just reach right out to me and we can get those answered.
Nate, thank you so very much. We do actually, there's a one in the chat, and then I just have one as well, and then we'll see if there's others. But thank you so very much. Very informative. I know Stacy had asked, are you able to work with school age students during the day, like job coaching, paid employment experiences, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great question. Um, A year ago, last school year, we were working in schools all the time, going in, figuring out when can we meet, what's going to work well with your schedule. Um, through VRS. Now, VRS in Minnesota has run into some funding issues with pre-ets, so they scaled that back a lot, and we haven't been able to do it as much. We still can, and we're getting into schools and transition programs more. But if it were if it were up to us, then yeah, we would get in there, we'd work with the case manager, the teacher, and figure out what are you doing, what can we do to supplement. Um, and that's that background of education so many of our staff has, is we've been there before, right? We get it, we get the constraints. Let's figure out what we can tap into to just all work together and all be on the same page. And that's when you see the most progress and growth, and goal accomplishment. So yeah, that we are absolutely able to. It's just if it's through VRS, there's been some more issues, but we're pretty flexible. We want to find a way to make it work. And our hope is that VRS will get their stuff figured out and we'll be able to provide that more and more. Because we had a lot of clients that were in their transition program and then they would leave and go work with our job coaches at one of our work sites, either as a work experience or like they got hired.
Oh, and VRS was doing so much for their students and families, like the Bridge to the Future and paid job tryouts and things like that. And now it's such a challenge because they can't, for the students and their families anymore. So,
Yeah, and it's frustrating. I'm not gonna lie, because like we had so many clients we were working with where like we were making progress, right? Like we've been working with them for a while. Then all of a sudden VRS is like, we got to pause. And it's like, well, there's some things that like we have deadlines for. Like we need to get applications in, right? Like we need to get FAFSA submitted, or and they just had a pause. And that's a big reason why we want to start the nonprofit too, is to be not so reliant on the state when funding with the state at the state and federal level can change quickly. Um, so we want to be able to have more freedom of, if we have grants or we have funds available, how can we use those? How can we get back in schools? How can we do work experiences not through, or internships not through VRS? But it has been frustrating. We're starting to see it improve, which is encouraging. But when cuts like that, anybody in education knows, when cuts like that happen, the people that are most impacted are the students, the individuals that we're all supposed to be working for. Um, but we're trying to develop ways to overcome that and just provide options to our clients and their families.
and I'm just looking at time too. So I may have missed it. Is transportation something that's provided or reimbursed for?
Great question. So we don't provide the transportation, right? Like we won't pick our clients up and bring them to work, but we do a lot around identifying your transportation options, right? Of like understanding, okay, if you have a waiver, is there anything that we can access through a waiver? If not, is there anything set up like around here? It's called Metro Mobility, right? It's part of the public transportation, but it's something that people have to apply for if they have a disability. So are there services like that that we can tap into? If that's not an option, can we look at getting your license, right? If that's not an option, can we identify an option A, B, and C to get to and from work that might be like a family member, walk or bike, or if we need to take an Uber or a Lyft. So we really are work with our clients to understand what are your options, how can you get safely to and from work or any of these experiences. Now, if we have a client that's going to go to a job shadow and they can't find a ride, we'll bring them so they don't miss on an opportunity. So we're not going to be the transportation because we may not always be there. So that's where we try to educate and tap into whatever we can so that they can receive that reliable and consistent transportation. That's a huge one, right? Like that's one of the first things we talk about. Someone wants to
Right.
get a job. How are you going to get to and from, right? You got to get back from work too. Um, so we're always looking for those different opportunities. And there's been like around Minnesota, there's been some counties that have received grants to utilize Lyft and Uber, So whenever we find that out, it's like, all right, now we know about this, let's tap into it. So we're always looking for those unique opportunities as well.
No, love it. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that is always a question that comes up. And I know definitely just in general with like work-based learning, but with individuals with disabilities, and again, making sure there's access. But I love that you have that metro mobility. But yeah, it's still, again, trying to get creative and like you said, looking at, Uber or Lyft and seeing or if there's certain grants that come in
Yep.
that could, right, to help provide access. Let's see, can students come into the transition program or can your services come into a transition program if families are using money from other sources or like a self-pay?
Yeah, we have, as long as it's okay with the school, right? And that's where like we can have that conversation and figure that out. It's if it's a school that we've worked with previously through VRS, then they're going to be more willing. But we've like Minneapolis Public Schools has like if you're going to come in and provide a service, you have to like apply and make sure you're legit. So like we've done that. So if there's a background check we need to do, all of our employees are background checks. So we can provide that background check or run another one. But that's the thing is like we're pretty flexible in the how we do this. And we're willing to have any conversation with school staff, with parents, just to make that happen. If that's going to be the best setting, which usually it is, right? Because they're there, and we know they're going to be there. Uh, then we'll try to make it happen, and we can just explain to admin like this is why we're here. This is the intent. This is when. This is how we'll communicate, and just make sure that. And then we always stress to academics first, right? Like if we have to cancel a meeting because you have a test or a quiz or you got to get caught up on homework, do that. But if we can build that into your schedule and build routine, then you're there. You're at school. Let's figure out how to make it happen.
Okay, thank you. And looking at the time, we're about 4:25. I did want to devote those extra last 5 minutes. I know we got started a little bit later too. But a lot of great information. So I see quite a few thank yous in there. So just a very quick wrap up. Nate, thank you so much. Your time, your expertise, inspiring work that you're doing and sharing that with us today has been incredible. It's so evident that your passion in supporting individuals with disabilities and finding that meaningful employment and pathways forward. Again, it's truly evident throughout the work that you found and owner and continue to lead efforts in my path. We gratefully appreciate your collaboration, your insights, and the opportunities you've highlighted for us today. So thank you so much. Again, your commitment to this incredible work is super important. We thank you so much for being here with us today. If everyone can just take a quick moment on your agenda, there's a feedback form. So we kindly ask that you just take a moment to complete this. Um, Stay tuned for future PD opportunities, right? We'll be getting a doodle pull out soon to kind of help maybe coordinate some dates, also for like our professional development committee, but just kind of getting some of that information out. So that kind of just leads me to my very last piece here, is just opportunities for membership engagement, right? So kind of my plug, as we continue to expand and reach the impact for CTE for all. Again, always looking for ways to elevate the voices and talents of our members. It could be anything from contributing to ideas, co-presenting at future sessions, possibly helping shape some of the future upcoming PD topics. So many opportunities to get involved. So again, if you're interested in becoming more engaged or maybe know someone, I know on the feedback form, there's a space to input that. But again, we would just love to hear from you. You can indicate again on the form, or you can always feel free to reach out directly to me as well. Again, insights for our members greatly appreciated. This work is relevant, responsive, and really rooted in the needs of our CT community. So Nate, again, cannot thank you so much again for being with us today. Gratefully appreciate it. So again, everyone, just please take a moment in the feedback form. If there's other questions or follow-up questions you maybe have for Nate, I know he shared his contact information as well. I think that's it for the good of the group. I see Dana put the link to that survey in there as well. So thank you, or for the feedback form, thank you. But otherwise, that will conclude our event today. Again, thank you all for joining us and have a wonderful rest of your day and may the rest of your school year hopefully calm down a little bit, but hopefully it goes very well. So thank you all.